Good morning and welcome to chapel. As some of you are still filing in, I just wanted to say thank you for coming. I'm excited for today. Let me just open up with a quick word of prayer and then we'll get started for today. So if you would please just pray with me for a moment. Jesus, we thank you for today. Thank you for the opportunity to have another day, to live for you, to love you, to serve others around us, to learn. So I just pray that you would just bless us today as we enter into chapel, and that you would just speak to us and teach us and encourage us. We ask this in Jesus' name. Amen. So today, we're in chapel is in partnership with the Marion County Substance Abuse Prevention Coalition. That's a mouthful, so I need to read it off my screen here. And I'm excited to bring this special convocation to you. And so you received an email this morning, like, what's a convocation? How is that different from chapel? Real quick, chapel is just like more of a worship experience that's meant to affect your heart and to it's aimed at reaching your heart, whereas a convocation is a little bit different. Convocation is a presentation that will seek to engage the mind of the students and more than provoking the heart. So today, I'm excited to present that we are hosting Libby Davis from Keepin Clean for Coop. And Libby is a wife, a mother, a sister, aunt, daughter, and a nurse. She's also a mom of Cooper, a 16-year-old who died from a fentanyl poisoning in 2021. She and her husband, along with the rest of their family, have founded the Cooper Davis Memorial Foundation, known as Keepin Clean for Coop, a nonprofit organization with the focus of spreading awareness and providing education about the dangers of fentanyl and fake pills. Their mission is to help save families the heartache of losing a loved one. Knowing every life is precious, they want to prevent others from making that one choice that could have deadly outcomes. And so I'm excited to present to you Libby Davis. So would you please come, help me welcome her as she comes to share with us today.
Okay, now I'm on. Yay. Good morning, Tabor College. And as I understand, some local high schools might be also participating with us today. Thank you for having me. I'm excited to be here. I am going to actually get us started with a quick little video that kind of sets the groundwork for some of the conversations we're going to have today. So I'm going to get that started. Okay. There we go.
What is inside this vial could kill you almost instantly. In fact, this much would kill you and I if we split it. It's odorless, tasteless, and it's currently being disguised as nearly any drug you can buy off the street. This is fentanyl. Fentanyl is a synthetic opioid that is 100 times stronger than morphine and about 50 times the strength of heroin. Fentanyl has sedative effects and will rapidly slow down a person's breathing. Just a milligram too much of fentanyl can result in hypoxia, a decrease of oxygen to the brain, and can quickly lead to death. Sounds more like a poison than a drug. If you were to ingest fentanyl and live, your body would begin having withdrawals within a few hours. Fentanyl is one of the most addictive substances known to man. It is also rather cheap to produce considering its potency, which is why it is being used in all types of illicit drugs. Pills, cocaine, methamphetamine, MDMA, even some instances of marijuana. Illegal drugs have been forever changed because of fentanyl. The most notable are the fake prescription pills. In 2021, the DEA alone seized over 20 million fake prescription pills made of fentanyl. These pills, designed to look exactly like prescription drugs such as oxycodone, Percocet, Xanax, Adderall, and more, contain nothing but fentanyl in a colored binder and are pressed to look just like the pills you would get from a pharmacy. The difference, though, is a matter of life or death. The DEA has reported over 42% of pills tested for fentanyl contain a potentially lethal dose. So maybe it's not the first pill someone takes, but one shortly after. Over the past few years, there has been enough fentanyl seized to kill every person in the United States. Fentanyl is being found everywhere in almost every drug, but you won't know it's there until it's too late. Your decision to not try a drug is one of the most important decisions that you can make. Over time, pop culture seems to glorify drugs more and more. Drugs have been promoted as solutions to mental health struggles like depression and anxiety. Trying drugs has been normalized as something that is just part of going through life. In reality, it is something that will take your life from you. With fentanyl's increasing prevalence in nearly all drugs today, promoting drug use is one of the most dangerous messages an influential person can communicate, especially to young people. The glamorous lifestyle associated with drug use is a facade. Many famous people suffer brutal addictions behind the scenes, and fentanyl is exposing that truth. More and more great artists, athletes, and talents are falling to fentanyl. With them are many others who fell for the lie that using illicit drugs can solve any pain or problem in your life. It is a lie you must be smart enough to see through. Fentanyl is a death trap that very few escape once they enter into it. Do not be deceived. Fentanyl has turned drug dealers into death dealers, and today's easy access to drugs means that a dealer could be anybody. Most illicit drug sales today happen online and over social media. Many of the drug death stories I've encountered are of teens and young adults who bought a pill or a bit of cocaine and had it delivered to their family's house. A lot of times it was from somebody that they knew. Let's make this clear. It does not matter how well you think you know someone. It does not matter if they tell you the drug that they have is really what they say it is. You both do not know if fentanyl is in that drug until it is too late. Just because you've seen a friend try a drug, or even if you've tried something before, does not mean it's going to be safe. These drugs are not coming from a pharmacy or a lab with quality control. These drugs are being blended together by random people who do not care about you and bagged up for a quick profit. What seems like a safe dose could contain enough fentanyl to kill multiple people simply because of how carelessly these drugs are made. Again, you won't know until it's too late. Fentanyl is now the leading cause of death for young people in the United States. Some are looking for relief, some for a good time. Many are just curious and make a stupid mistake. Had they known fentanyl was in the drugs they took, they never would have done it. But they can't take that choice back now. You, though, have a choice to make for your life. You may struggle sometimes and feel like you need help. You may get curious or tempted to try a drug. Remember that feelings are temporary, but some decisions can last forever. You always have the opportunity to choose something greater, something that will give you life and not death. I encourage you today to realize how precious your life is, and that one choice is all it takes to throw it away. Please do not do it. Remember that you have a purpose. You have gifts and passions that are unique to you. You were made to have a future. You can live an amazing life without ever touching a drug. Just keep going after the things you know are right, things that are good for you. You'll be an example for your friends, and you can encourage them too. If you're a young person and learned something from this video today, I want you to share it with your friends because this information is saving lives right now. You could be the friend that saves someone's life by keeping them from making a big mistake. Please share it. If you're a parent or guardian and you want to learn more about how you can educate and protect your children from fentanyl poisoning, then I need you to head over to naturalhigh.org/fentanyl right now and sign up with your email to receive the free fentanyl toolkit. Natural High will keep you updated with information and resources you can share with your children. My name is Dominic Tierno. My natural highs are faith and filmmaking. Thank you for watching.
Okay, so the challenge with videos like that and even the handouts I have on the table out there is that this epidemic is changing so often that a lot of these statistics are not up to date. So I want to make sure you have the most up-to-date information, and we're going to break all of that down because that video was packed with a lot of information. That video is available on YouTube to anyone. It's called Dead on Arrival. That was the 6-minute youth version. There's also a 21-minute longer version. So hopefully after today you will feel the need to share some of this information with your friends and your loved ones, and that's a great place to take them. I'm going to give a quick shout out to this organization called Song for Charlie. They do work like I do, and they are responsible for some of the slides in my presentation. So all of these kids you see on the screen died after taking one pill, a pill that they believed to be a real prescription pill like Oxy, Xanax, or Percocet. Your generation is dealing with different drug issues than we used to know, and fentanyl is the game changer. Taking pills has become normalized for your generation, and teens and young adults have started self-medicating. All of these kids you see on the screen died after taking just half of a fake pill. We know that teens and young adults are easily getting pills on social media, often being delivered to their own homes. Most of these deaths are not party deaths. They're not party situations. These are kids truly trying to help themselves. It might be for anxiety or depression or some ongoing pain, or sometimes just because they're trying to get a good night's sleep. But unfortunately, they're at home alone, taking this pill all by themselves, and their parents or roommates are finding them dead the next morning. All of these pictures I've shown you only represents a small amount of the young lives that have been lost to fentanyl. In 2022, 5,500 young people ages 10 to 24 lost their lives to fentanyl. I wanted you just to see some of these faces because they look a lot like anyone who could be sitting right next to you. But I have a personal story to share. And no matter how many times I tell it, it doesn't get easier. This is my son, Cooper. Cooper was a fun kid, so full of life, very outgoing, never met a stranger. He had an infectious smile and a kind heart. Cooper loved everything about water. So he loved to fish, ski, and wakeboard. If there was an ocean, lake, river, pond, or puddle, it didn't matter how cold it was. This was the kid that would jump in with all of his clothes on. Cooper was into all the extreme sports. So he loved things like skateboarding, mountain biking, scooter tricks, rock climbing, cliff jumping, and snowboarding. He was a self-taught natural at everything he tried, and in his mind, there was no such thing as too high or too fast. He was so adventurous and absolutely fearless. But he also thought that he was invincible. On August 29th of 2021, Cooper was deceived to death. He was 16, and he had just started his junior year of high school. It was a Sunday afternoon like any other, and he was at a friend's house. We got the call that every parent fears. Local police telling us that Cooper was having a medical emergency and we needed to get there as soon as possible. We would learn later that 4 boys decided to share 2 pills that they believed to be Percocet. 3 boys survived, but Cooper did not. He had taken half of a fake pill that was made with fentanyl. This is the last picture I have of Cooper. He posted that half of one of those pills took his life. Does anybody want to guess where that picture might have been posted? Yeah, Snapchat. So, as you heard in my introduction, I am a nurse, so I know a little bit already about fentanyl. But what I know about, or what I knew about before Cooper's death, was pharmaceutical-grade fentanyl. In fact, my husband's a nurse anesthetist. He's at work today probably giving fentanyl as we speak because he helps put people to sleep for surgeries. So I want to talk about what is fentanyl. And usually it's described in 3 words. First, it's an opioid, meaning that it is part of a group of medications that is used to treat severe pain or part of the anesthesia process in surgery. When properly used by medical professionals, it is completely safe, and it is a really good drug. We've been using it in medicine since the 1960s. It's also described as synthetic, meaning that it is man-made and it is made in a laboratory. So there are no crops to grow and the costs are much lower. It's also very potent. So fentanyl is 100 times stronger than morphine and 50 times stronger than heroin. Just a tiny amount could be lethal. And it takes effect very quickly, and it wears off faster than other opioids, but it is highly addictive and really hard to kick. So I wanted to just show you a picture of the amount of fentanyl it would take to kill the average adult. So it's equivalent to a few grains of salt. Just to give you some perspective, here's another picture. This is what the DEA uses. The amount of powder that would fit on the tip of a pencil is all that it takes to kill the average adult. So we talked a little bit about pharmaceutical fentanyl, and I don't want you to be afraid of that. I've actually heard people say in the hospital they refused to receive fentanyl because they had heard, in the news how dangerous it was. Pharmaceutical fentanyl is completely safe. Today, we're focused on illicit fentanyl, and that is the black market version of the drug. It's being made illegally in people's dirty garages or sometimes even out in the jungle in clandestine labs by amateur chemists and who cannot ensure the final product. So just to give you an example, this is a picture of a real lab here in the United States where fentanyl might be made. Here you can see it's very clean, it's very high tech. You will find chemists, pharmacists, lots of people in lab coats doing quality checks to ensure that the final product is exactly the way it's intended to be, the right dose, the right potency, all of those things. This is where fentanyl is being made in Mexico with some of the drug cartels. It's being made in massive quantities, and they are using it to make fake pills, and they are also lacing it into harder street drugs like heroin, cocaine, methamphetamine. And we know that these pills that they're making are being sold online, and they're using social media to do a lot of their work for them. Here's another picture of a clandestine lab in Mexico. So the DEA uses the analogy of making chocolate chip cookies. So by show of hands, how many of you have ever made a batch of chocolate chip cookies? Probably everybody, right? Almost. So no matter how well you mix that batter, when your cookies come out of the oven, do all of them have the same amount of chocolate chips? Nope. Have you noticed that some have a lot of chocolate chips and others hardly have any? Yeah. Well, this batch of chocolate chip cookies is much like the cartel's batch of fake pills. The only difference is they can't see fentanyl in the pills that they're making, so they have no idea how much fentanyl is in each little fake pill that they've made. Whereas when we look at our cookies, we know exactly how many chocolate chip cookies. Well, not exactly, but we know if it has a lot or a little. We know exactly where it is in that cookie. And so if we were trying to avoid it, we could, but why would we, right? So before we go any further, I want to just kind of summarize the drug cartel's business plan, because it is a good one and it's important. I mean, not good for us, but good for them. It's important that you understand what's behind this epidemic. So basically, they used to have to grow crops to make their drug supply. So they needed the right season, they needed sunshine, water, all of those things. And they were limited by how much crop they could produce. They chose fentanyl because, as we've already learned, fentanyl is made in a lab. As long as you can get your hands on the right chemicals, the amount that you can make is limitless. So they chose fentanyl for a reason. They also chose fentanyl because it is highly addictive, it's odorless, it's tasteless, and it's easy to smuggle across the border. So they've recognized also that the United States already has a problem with addiction in our country. And this stems back to the early 2000s with prescription opioids, and that created a lot of addiction in our country. But the cartels have recognized that we struggle with this. They also recognize that we have become somewhat of a pill-popping nation. We, over any other country, we provide more medications than any other country. In fact, I've heard that the United States is responsible for 90% of all opioid prescriptions. And that's the real stuff. But the drug cartels realize this, so they see the United States as a moneymaker. They want to get fentanyl into our country to drive addiction so that they can create repeat users. That is their number one goal. It is all about money. So I'm going to show you a few graphs here. This graph shows us drug-induced deaths by drug type for ages 10 to 24. That yellow line up there shows us that the drug that is killing most of our young people is indeed fentanyl. So the top line, the white line, is all drug deaths, and then the yellow line just below that is fentanyl. And all the other lines at the bottom of the graph are all the other drugs that barely contribute anymore. In 2022, fentanyl accounted for 81% of all drug deaths for this age group. But the good news on this graph is that you can see in the last year there's been a little dip downwards, so we are hopefully headed in the right direction. This graph on the left shows the growth in drug-induced deaths since 2018, and age group is along the bottom. So you can see our teenagers definitely have been the most affected. And on the right, it shows us fentanyl involvement in that growth. So in the growth you see on the left side, how much was fentanyl involved in that? And you can see for teens and young 20s that fentanyl is definitely responsible for the death rate growth. This slide shows us what drugs were contributing to overdose deaths back in 2012. And then in 2017, and on the far right, you'll see 2022. Fentanyl is represented in yellow. So you can see that it is responsible for the majority of drug deaths right now, especially for persons in their teens and early 20s. And it's probably hard to see, but that is age group along the bottom. So to the far left, I believe it starts at less than 14. So this is what the old drug model or drug use model used to look like. So young people might start experimenting with drugs. Some would go on to become recreational users, weekend warrior type of thing. Others might go on to become habitual users, and then sadly some would move into that state of addiction. It's in that latter part where we used to see most drug overdose deaths. With this old model, there was time and there was a chance for intervention and for the user to grow out of their risky behavior or just to recognize they needed to change their behavior. But with the introduction of fentanyl into the drug landscape, experimenters and first-time users are often dying. And these deaths, I don't even like to call them accidental overdoses, which is what they'll put on a death certificate, like Cooper's. These people are being poisoned, much like Snow White in this little meme. They're not taking an excessive amount of a drug that they know that they're taking, and Instead, rather, they are getting the tiniest amount of a drug that they didn't even know was in whatever it was they were taking. They don't have a chance to learn from their mistake. So unfortunately, we're seeing the same thing, similar numbers in our state, in Kansas. And I checked last night, there's no updates since 2021. But in 2021, there were 347 drug poisoning deaths with fentanyl involved. And then this graph shows the breakdown by age. So among Kansas residents ages 15 to 24 in 2021, okay, lots of you aren't raising your hands, but there was a bigger group for number 2. But number 1 is actually the real Percocet. We're going to do it again, and this is a Xanax. So 1 is fake and 1 is real. By show of hands, how many of you think number 1 is the real Xanax? Not very many takers. How many think number 2 is the real Xanax? Okay. If you chose number 2, 7 out of 10 of you would not survive because it's fake. And I don't show you these pictures because I hope that one day you're holding a pill in your hand and contemplating, is this fake or real? I hope you're never in that situation. And to be honest with you, law enforcement, DEA, when they find pills, they don't try to guess either. They package them up and send them to the lab because the lab is the only place that can tell them if they are real or fake. So in late 2022, we started seeing what DEA refers to as rainbow fentanyl. So ironically, the cartels are using the Percocet pill press, but they're making the pills in bright, colorful, what's supposed to be fun-looking pills. The DEA describes this as a deliberate effort to lure our youth into trying one of these pills. And again, if you remember their business plan, they want you to try it so that you will become addicted and that you will become a repeat user. Not long after that, we started seeing what's called speckled fentanyl. Again, it's the Percocet pill press, only now it looks kind of tie-dyed. So I really love this information here. On the left side, you will see the number of pills that DEA seized. You'll see in 2019, they seized 2.2 million pills. Okay, these are just pills. In 2022, they have seized more than 59.6 million pills. That was 2022. I just hopped on their website last night. For 2023, they're already above 62 million pills. So they test these pills, and that's what the picture on the right shows, a CNN report telling us that of all those pills that they have confiscated and tested, they have found more than 99% are in fact fake and made with fentanyl. And so this is, I'm going to come back to another thought real fast, but this is one of those information things that have changed frequently. In the video you saw, I think you said 42% of the pills contained a lethal dose. In November of 22, DEA said, nope, it's 6. 6 out of 10 pills has a lethal dose of fentanyl. And just like 3 weeks ago, in early October, DEA released that 7 out of 10 pills of these fake pills that they're confiscating has a lethal dose of fentanyl. So like I said, this information changes constantly. But what I wanted to go back to is the DEA seizures. Unfortunately, I have worked closely with the DEA over the past couple years, and they will tell you that even though they're confiscating all these pills, they believe that's only 20% of what's available on the market. So this is our region. So this is the St. Louis region, which includes Kansas, all of Missouri, and southern Illinois. So these are seizures for our region, and you can just see year over year, those seizures keep going up. And so since this is such an important topic, I think I want to make sure that if you were ever in a situation where you thought someone might have taken something that could have been a fake pill made with fentanyl or a drug that was laced with fentanyl, I want you to have the signs of an overdose. So you can see, obviously, they're going to be really hard to wake up. They're either going to be very slowly and breathing shallow, or just not breathing at all. Their skin is going to get cold and clammy. You might start to see some blue around their lips or in their nail beds. But the best sign to know that someone has an opioid in their system is by looking at their pupils, so the little black part of their eye. If it's very, very tiny, we call that a pinpoint pupil. That is a sure sign that they have an opioid in their system. And the treatment for that is get help right away. They need help very quickly. But also Narcan. Naloxone is the generic name. But I encourage everyone to carry Narcan with them. It is life-saving. You never know when you might need it. And it's real easy to use. So it is basically like a nasal spray. And that box that you see on the screen actually contains 2 doses. So each one will come in a little package that you peel the back off. So if you can just remember peel, place, meaning place the white plunger up one side of the nose, up one nostril, and then push. Peel, place, and push is all you have to remember. But it could save your friend's life. And here, just in March of 2023, we started learning about something new. This was another DEA public safety alert about xylazine. So xylazine is another drug that the cartels are adding to the drugs that also they're adding fentanyl to. It kind of accentuates the effects of fentanyl. It's also very cheap, but it is an animal tranquilizer. So it is not an opioid. It will not respond to Narcan, so it is really making this epidemic worse. They call it the zombie drug. They call it trank. It's a big problem in the East, like in Philadelphia, because one of the side effects, it's not intended for humans, but one of the side effects of xylazine is that your skin basically starts to disintegrate. So they've had to set up, there's pop-up wound clinics all over Philadelphia for their drug population who has an addiction. You know, these are usually the harder street drugs. Xylazine has been found in fake pills, but this is mostly a problem with the other street drugs that are laced with fentanyl. But these folks have an addiction, and, you know, that's no joke. That's not just something they can turn off. So they have to continue to use until they can be ready for the help they need and get the help they need. So the side effect now is that they're finding this xylazine in their drug, and they're needing these pop-up wound clinics. This was just a social media post that I did. There's 2 fentanyl awareness days now, 2 a year, and one was just on August 21st. So I put this out because our region, Midwest HIDA is the high-intensity drug trafficking area. Midwest HIDA came out and said officially for the first time that fentanyl is the greatest drug threat in our area. They also acknowledged, hold on, I have to read this, it's very small. They acknowledged xylazine was in combination with fentanyl throughout our region. And then that last little note is relative to Johnson County, but I work closely with some folks in the Sheriff's Department as well. And one of my sources told me that 18 months ago, a pill off the street, when I say off the street, you know, drug deals aren't happening in back alleys anymore. Drug deals are pretty much happening on cell phones. But we'll just call it a pill off the street costs $20. 18 months ago. And today, when they're setting up their stings and, you know, setting up to make fake purchases, they're able to get a pill for $1. That's how cheap it is. So this is new information from the CDC just showing a couple years of overall drug deaths in our country. And you can see a little bit of good news is, from 2020 to 2021, there was 15,000 increase in lives lost to drug overdose. And from 21 to 22, that is much less. It was only maybe 1,000. I can't see my screen. 1,500 instead of 15,000. So that looks like really good news, right? I want to say that that's really good news, but I also want to be cautious that because there has been a big push in the availability of Narcan and more people carrying it, I do think that we're seeing the effects of more people being saved, and not necessarily that fentanyl is less of a problem. So I just want you to keep that in mind. Just because the drug deaths are decreasing doesn't mean that fentanyl isn't still out there. I just think that more people are equipped with Narcan and more saves are happening. More schools have it than a year ago. I know that for a fact because my sister-in-law spoke at the Kansas Nurse Conference, and that led to many, many schools getting Narcan in their schools. So this is an interesting survey that was taken by Gen Zers like you, both in 2021 and again in 2022. So this is ages 13 to 24. You can see on here that 48% of this age group is aware of fentanyl and fake pills. And that's more than a year ago, so that's good. We're making some progress. But that also means that still more than half the people in this age group are not aware of fentanyl and fake pills. When asked to rate the danger of fentanyl, 68% described it as dangerous. And on the right, you can see that this group thinks that heroin is the most dangerous, yet fentanyl causes 27 times as many deaths as heroin and 5 times as many deaths as cocaine. So the good news is, up at the top, it says that 65% report that they are less likely to consider misusing meds after learning about fentanyl being in fake pills. So we know that awareness is helping. So what can you do? As I said, this epidemic is ever changing. I feel like every time, the first public safety alert came in September of 2021, 1 month, less than 1 month after Cooper died. And oh, how I wish we had heard that public safety alert a little bit sooner so we could at least have some conversation about it. But since then, I feel like every month or two, there's something new out there, something's changing with this epidemic, and it's very important for us all to stay on top of it and in the know. I also think it's important for everyone to spread the word. Tell your friends, refer them to that video I showed you at the beginning. Tell your siblings, talk to your families about it. It's also important to start, if you haven't already, working on developing healthy coping skills. We all need healthy coping skills, not just for just our acute stressors, but even daily stressors, because there's a difference. There's stress that can be good, there's stress that we have every day that's kind of low, but then you have some big events too. Some are happy, some are sad. No matter what the situation, you want to have a toolbox full of coping skills that are healthy. I also hope that you will recognize that asking for help, whether it be that you might think you already have a substance use disorder, or maybe it's your emotional health, maybe you are starting to feel like you're struggling with anxiety or depression a little bit more. I hope you recognize that asking for help is a positive. It's not a negative, it's a positive, especially in this day and age, because we've talked a little bit about self-medicating. And just to make sure everybody understands what that means that you are taking a medication that was not prescribed for you by a doctor, and it may not have come from a pharmacy. So this could be taking your friend's medication or taking a pill that you've purchased off of social media. It's basically treating what you think you have without a doctor's advice. And this is happening more and more. Most of these deaths in this age group occur because either a teen or a young adult is experimenting with drugs or they've started to self-medicate. Let's see what else I have on here. Also, I'm going to go back to my nursing days here. Remember that your brains are still developing, and they are going to continue to develop until about the age of 25, sometimes people all the way to 28. And in that time frame, you're going to make a lot of bad decisions. That's part of growing up. We make bad decisions. We're supposed to be able to learn from our mistakes. With fentanyl being in the drug landscape, that's not always a possibility. Experimenting is not safe. Bad decisions can be real bad decisions, life-changing bad decisions. So I just want you to be aware that your brain is developing, and I pray that this one bad decision, using a drug, you don't know where it came from, using a pill, you don't know where it came from, is not one of those bad decisions that you're going to make while your brain continues to develop. And of course, if you need to, please seek professional help. So I have some social media sites our organization does. I have a love-hate relationship with social media. Never did it before Cooper died. It is responsible somewhat for his death. But we also recognize that this was a great way to share important information and to make more people aware and educate others. So I encourage you, if you do use social media, hop on to one of our sites, and we try to push out the most up-to-date information that we can. We have a website also. You can reach out to us there. But being able to share Cooper's story is very therapeutic. So I appreciate you allowing me to be here and to be part of my healing. And I appreciate you listening. I will stick around after if anybody has any questions, unless maybe we have time. I can't really see the clock. How are we doing? If we don't have time for questions now, I will hang around if you have any questions. Oh, I think we're at our hard stop. So I'll just be down off the stage later. Thank you so much for being here, for letting me share.